educational organization dedicated to waste reduction, reuse, recycling, supporting markets for recycled content materials, always important. Our members come together to seek solutions to the challenges that impact this mission, and we express our concerns to the state agencies that would be involved, as well as political leadership when necessary. We welcome members of industry, government, educational institutions, and nonprofits that share our goals. For 40 years, we have been the collective voice of recycling in the state of Illinois, and our members are allowed to attend webinars free of charge. There are no fees if our members would like to have a job posting on our website or to our social media sites. And if you have additional employees who are interested in attending a webinar, they are allowed to attend free of charge. Just so you're aware, when we do begin meeting back in person, either for tours or educational opportunities, there is a discounted fee, but normally we do it with a lunch, something fun. There's usually a reason for a fee, but you do get a discount, and that extends to all your employees. All of our members are listed on our website directory, and it should be noted that we do get a lot of folks who would come to our website looking for services, so that's a great advertising tool for you. There are monthly emails which cover current topics that are impacting recycling, so you remain informed, and the newsletter usually features at least one of our members and some highlights about them. Also, our members' activities might be highlighted in social media. So if you have a press release you're sending out, be sure to include us, and we'll see if we can get something out about you. All of our members are also members of the National Recycling Coalition, and our membership fees are quite reasonable, we believe. So we really do encourage you to join today, and you can do that at illinoisrecycles.org. So I would like to thank today our sponsor, which is the Electronics Recycling Representative Organization, which is a mouthful when we have all been calling it the clearinghouse for years. So I believe Jason is with us today and might be able to answer some questions when we get to the Q&A. At this moment, I just really want to thank you for the sponsorship, which helps make this possible. We are doing this program in cooperation with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, and that is because it is time to opt in to the CERA program and get your electronics recycled as inexpensively as possible with the manufacturing support. So today's agenda includes Jessica Miller from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. She oversees the electronics program in the state of Illinois. Myself will be talking from the perspective of Will County and our experience in the program. We have Paul Cooney from Ogle County, Joy Hinz from Dupage, James Larkin from A-Team Recycling, and Casey Hines from Dynamic Lifecycle Innovations. I also want to thank our board and staff members that are assisting us today, which is Gloria McDonald, who's letting everybody in, John Tiglar, and Luke Ficus, all of whom will be helping us with the question and answer portion at the end. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Jessica Miller. Jessica is a graduate of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and she has worked in the environmental fields and on the local level for several years. As an Illinois EPA employee, Jessica manages the electronic recycling program. She's involved in various solid waste projects, and Jessica regularly engages stakeholders, including local and state, as well as official representatives and members of the public. So Jessica, if you will, get us started. You might have to unmute. Is Jessica there? Is Jessica having difficulties? I know we had somebody else speaking have difficulties joining. Well.
Hey, Marta, she's requesting the Zoom ID and info.
She is?
She's not,
Gloria, could you resend that to her? She's not in yet.
Yes. Huh.
Ah. Well, I don't want to take too much of her thunder away, but I think from the first slide anyway, while she's joining, you can see that we actually began electronics recycling when we passed a law in 2008 that began implementation in 2009. That was a weight-based goal, which is very different from the way we're operating it today. I was around for that. We were quite pleased at the time. It was quite a new law, but it certainly had some flaws in there. So we tried to improve it. You see her getting in, Gloria?
Just sending it to her here right now.
Okay. My apologies for the delay. She really is the best kickoff for this, so I really don't want to skip ahead to anybody. I think you want her presentation as the foundation as we move forward. I know Jessica's very busy today. She was actually in another meeting and then leaving that one early to get to us. So probably part of the reason for the last moment difficulty.
I don't see her yet. I've sent it to her, hopefully.
Well, I will say under the weight-based model that there were some serious haves and have-nots across the state of Illinois when it came to how this got distributed. There were areas of the state that received service, and then there were areas of the state that did not. And it was very difficult. Sometimes counties would meet their weight goals and they would lose service in the midst of the year. So there was a number of issues that came out of the weight-based model. (2012) is actually when a lot of the materials became illegal to place in the landfill. And the list of items expanded as well. It started out with basically 4 items and we went up to, I believe, 17. We still have one of the more extensive lists across the United States of items that are banned from the landfill.
Okay, here comes Jessica.
Awesome. We'll let her connect.
I'm here.
Thanks, Jessica. I just mentioned the passing and the ban, and that was as far as I went on your slides. So please feel free to continue.
Okay, sure. So yeah, in 2012, there was a disposal ban on certain types of electronic devices. We call those CEDs for covered electronic devices. And in 2018, CERA was signed and it was actually implemented in 2019. So 2019 would have been our first programmatic year that we did this. It modernized some elements of the recycling program that we have, and it's based on a convenience standard. So it's more related to, rather than collecting by weight goals, which is what we previously did, and it's what a lot of other states do. We now are more focused on just having access. And then also that meant that the previous law, EPRA, had expired. Okay, so just a quick overview that governs the electronics recycling program in Illinois. Our first year was 2019, and if you look to the left, you'll see the 17 electronic devices that are covered under this. keep in mind, this is residential, this program, so it's not really focused on business waste, and the sites and events under this program do not accept business waste as being covered by the manufacturers. Like I said, it's no longer weight goal orientated, and counties that choose to opt into this program, they're awarded so many sites or events. That's whatever they choose, they can do either or, and that is based on population, how many sites and events they're awarded. Okay, and then so I'm going to go through the stakeholders that we have. So we have the manufacturers, we have counties and local government units, the collectors, the group plans, which are assigned to the county, and the recyclers, which are assigned to the county. And in some of the other webinars I've done, I have went in a little bit more on the manufacturer's role in this, and group plans and the recyclers, but I'm just going to keep it more county focused today. And just to give you an example of this breakdown, I used Will County. I believe this is for 2021. So this is, no problem. So this is Marta's county. So the county that opted in is Will County. Her collector is A-Team, and their local professional company, Jimmy will be speaking a little bit later. Their group plan is MRM, and their assigned recycler is Dynamic. All right, so for counties, in order to participate in this program, the county must submit an opt-in form that will go to me, and it will also go to the manufacturer clearinghouse. Jason Linnell is in charge of that and runs that. So he'll get that opt-in form as well. Like I said, based on your population of your county, you will be awarded X amount of sites or events. In most cases, based on the population, you'll get one site or 4 events. You don't have to have all 4 events in order to participate. Some counties only choose to do 1 or 2 events a year, whatever works for them. But the bigger counties up north, like Will, Keane, Dupage, Cook, they'll have more sites and events assigned to them just because there's a larger population. Assigned a group plan and recycler, and the county or another entity may act as the collector. It kind of varies. Some counties do act as the collector. Sometimes the collector is a municipality within that county that wants to run an event or have a site, or sometimes like Marta's county, they'll hire a professional local company to act as their collector.
Whoops.
Okay, so for the responsibilities portion, quickly to go over the manufacturers. So these are the things that they must provide to counties that opt in. So they must provide funding for packaging materials. So that includes gaylords, pallets, shrink wrap, things like that. Some counties, the recycler will drop that off for you. In other instances, I know counties that purchase this material and then they'll get reimbursed from the recycler for these materials. And then they must provide transportation for the materials that are collected, and they must fund the subsequent recycling of the materials that are collected under the program. And for county/local government responsibilities, so these are things that would not be covered by manufacturers, that would be potential cost or duties that you would need to do. So there's advertising, looking at site/event selection. So what space do you want to have your site at or your events? You will need labor to assist with stacking, packaging, and loading of electronics. I would say that the labor is probably where people that are looking to get involved in this process, labor is probably the biggest thing to cover, right? Because we need to have people that know how to stack these electronics and load them and prepare them for shipping, essentially. Any equipment, so pallet jacks, you may need a forklift. Some municipalities already have them, some rent them. And then reporting, and I'll talk a little bit more about reporting on the next slide, I believe. But CERA, it should be noted, CERA does allow collectors to charge for TVs and monitors to cover collection costs. So say you did want to hire some labor, you could charge $5, $10, $20 for a television or a computer monitor to help cover the cost for whatever labor you may need or equipment. Okay, and one of the other big things we get asked is, can I be charged any fees? So the short answer is yes, there is a fee that is directly addressed in CERA. So the shortfall fee for the semi-trailers, the law says that under 18,000 pounds, there is supposed to be a prorated fee of $600. So that prorated fee, think if you have a semi-trailer and you're underweight by 5,000 pounds, that should cost you less than being underweight by 10,000 pounds. So it should be prorated $600. And then there can be another fee. This is not directly addressed in CERA though. So a fee for items collected that are not covered under the program. So outside of those 17 items that I had shown on the previous slide. So CERA does not, like I said, directly address how to handle this matter, like the 18,000 pound underweight trailer. But if a county wants to accept more items than what is covered, they'll need to work out an agreement with their recycler. Some counties choose to accept microwaves and other materials, and they work out with their recycler any charges related to that. Some counties, in order to mitigate any fees like this, they just make sure they're only accepting what is covered by the manufacturers. Okay, so forms and reporting requirements. So we have the opt-in form that must be submitted and signed by a county representative. The collector registration form. This is if the county is acting as the collector, they'll fill that out. Like in Marta's case with A-Team, Jimmy fills that out and sends in the collector registration form for that. So that can differ on who fills that out. Same thing with the collection report. So the collection report is just simply, if you had 2 events, you'll list those 2 events down and you'll list the weight collected at those events for each category type. And that data should be provided to you by the recycler. So for example, here, this is for program 2022. So the opt-in form is due March 1st, 2021. So it's due almost a whole year in advance of program year 2022. And then the collector registration form will be due by January 1st of 2022. And then the collection report will be due March 1st of 2023. So that will be due in the spring after you've had a full year of collection. So there's, within this statute, there's a lot of interconnecting dates that we go through that I feel like can sometimes be confusing because we're handling different years subsequently at the same time. But I do try to keep everyone updated on those reports that are due. All right, so a lot of times I also get asked, hey, Jessica, what do counties do if they're not in this program? Well, some counties and municipalities, they run their own electronic programs outside of CERA. That's not a problem. They're free to do that. Some counties have existing relationships that they would like to keep that may not be possible under CERA. So they just choose to do their own thing, which is totally fine. Other counties do not hold their own programs. So instead they rely on private retailers or private recycling businesses to collect e-waste in their county. So major retailers would be like Best Buy and Staples. The only problem I feel like I've seen with that is some of these retailers and private businesses do not want televisions, which that is, I feel like, one of the main consumer items that people, especially tube televisions, that people are trying to recycle. And then finally, there are some counties that don't have events or a site, and they don't really have any private retailers or businesses. So likely the people that choose to responsibly recycle may have to go outside of that county. And I would say that these counties likely experience higher instances of open dumping or electronics entering landfills, which is illegal, but I'm sure smaller things do sometimes get through. All right, and then I just wanted to wrap this up by quickly going through the CERA collection that we had in 2019. So I I don't have the full data yet for 2020. That's coming soon, and we'll generate a report on that. So 2019 is the data I have. And as you can see, 9.9 million pounds was, the total was 14.7 million pounds roughly. So 9.9 million of that can be contributed to televisions. So that's, you know, they're really abundant in homes and they're really heavy. So of course that's gonna take up the pounds. And then I think what came in next was printers, scanner, fax machines, and then DV VCRs, and it just goes down from there. I think Jason had sent me some, we know the weight is gonna be down in 2020 just because of COVID. I think I did the calculations for quarters 1, 2, and 3, and I think we're something like 8.4 million pounds for those 3 quarters, and then we'll need the 4th quarter, but it's definitely going to be significantly under for 2020. And my guess is that 2021 will also be impacted. Okay, yeah, and for 2019, we had 14.7 million pounds overall, and that is equal to 32 Statue of Liberties. So I think we did a really good job in 2019. Again, I'm interested to see what the 2020 data will show. We know it will be impacted. So yeah, we'll see, and hopefully I'll have some updated numbers to bring you guys soon.
Thanks, Jessica. Sorry
Yeah.
about the difficulties you were having getting on there.
Oh, that's okay, no worries.
We appreciate you providing this foundation for everyone though.
Awesome, thanks.
So I get to start myself off, and I've been doing this kind of stuff since 1988 and the private sector. In 92, I moved over to the public sector. In 96, I was able to do the very first residential electronics collection in Naperville. And I've just been a big fan of electronic recycling for many years. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell you what we've been doing in Will County. So from my personal perspective, there's various models that you can do under the CERA Act. And I find model 1, where you have a manufacturing funding with the government paying a third-party company to sort and load the trailers, one that works really well for us. We have our drop-offs on government sites, and the trailers are stationed on either a government site or on the third party that we work with to provide service. So there's another model where manufacturing can fund government sorting and loading of the trailers. The government picks up the tab on that. And I know Pete Adrian is on this call, and that's something that they've been very successful with in Lake County. The trailers are stationed on the government sites. The employees that are sorting and packing are government employees. Model 3 would be manufacturing funded with a third party charging residents to cover the cost of sorting and loading the trailers. All the drop-offs are on government sites to my knowledge with this model, but I'm sure it could vary. And the trailers are stationed on third party sites. So model 4 for one-day events, which Jessica mentions, a lot of people like to choose those where you might have 1 or 2 of those a year. The government can use a third party to sort and load the semi-trailers that are provided by the manufacturers. They can choose whether they will or will not take any non-banned items and how they'll pay for that. And then model 5 would be a one-day program where the government actually tries to do all the labor itself. So I've heard of all of these things being done. There's probably some other variations. There is no one size fits all in this or cookie cutter, but I'm going to give you a little bit more information on what we do at Will County. So we combine Model 1 and Model 4. We have a permanent site at a public works facility in the city of Lockport, and it is open twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays from 6 a.m. to 11. We also have what we call 7 recurring collection sites that are open either once or twice each month, depending on the site, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So these are small 2-hour events. Most of the time it's under 10,000 pounds. And then we offer multiple one-day Saturday events. That's our model 4 there, where we use most of the other sites that were assigned by the way the CERA works as one-day Saturday collection events. Just so you know, we tried using county labor. These were part-time employees that we had working at the Lockport site, which I show here in 2016. And you can see that they could not keep up with that. So we considered that a failure, and we really like working with a third-party professional. And we have been lucky enough to have A-Team Recyclers since 2017 helping us with this, and they've been fantastic. So they do the ID checking, they do all the sorting, they do the packing, and they help with our reporting, which is fantastic. So we appreciate that very much. Just so you know, the city of Lockport does charge us to keep the semi-trailer parked there on their lot. And that's in recognition that it does take up some of the room that their public works folks would be using for other things like salt and other road maintenance materials. They also use their forklift to load the semi-trailer. So that's their equipment, their drivers doing that. Now they only load pallets that are approved by the A-Team folks who actually have packed them, so that when they load that trailer, we're never going to have a problem reaching that 18,000 pound goal that Jessica mentioned. And that's important to remember, because if your labor packing those Gaylord boxes or stacking those TVs doesn't know what they're doing, you can go under that 18,000 pounds fairly easily and still have a pretty full truck. So having someone who really knows how to pack is important. Now, A-Team also staffs our collections at our other recurring sites as well. Our third-party contract we bid every few years. So it includes the service at Lockport, and it includes the recurring collection at all the additional sites. For those, we have 2 staff who bring either a 24 or 26-foot box truck to the site. They must, by our contract, arrive 20 minutes before the site opens. All these sites are 5 to 7, just to keep it consistent. They need to stop collecting at 7 p.m. It doesn't matter if there's still a line. The people have to be, we make them very well aware. We tend to have people in line just before they open and never have a line at 7. But just so you know, we wanted to make sure that it was a cutoff so that they would get paid for the time that they're working. And we wouldn't get unexpected bills because they'd been there till 7:30 or something like that. And then if they exceed the capacity of that 24 or 26-foot truck, which is basically 10,000 pounds, it is their responsibility to come back that same night and clean up the rest of that site. So that is something that they actually built into their fees to us. That doesn't happen very often, thank goodness, but it has happened. So we do accept in our program non-banned items such as cassette players, which is very confusing for folks, weird things like hair dryers and power tools, and we have always taken microwaves since the very beginning of our program in the year 2000 in Will County. So we just are consistent, and we pay extra for those items that are not banned. Our contract for one-day events, because it's a slightly different animal, is bid separately, although A-Team has successfully gotten that contract the last several years. So we're quite pleased about that because they do a fantastic job. So when you hear Jimmy's presentation later, you'll see some of the experience that they bring with them and why they're able to pull off a permanent program. The amounts that you're going to get vary tremendously. We use an appointment system software to help us guess which, how many trailers we're going to need to order from our manufacturer's assigned recycler in advance so that they're not sending us too many or too few. And we ask our third-party vendor to provide cones, which in this picture, all the yellow cones you see are our vendors. Now there are more cones not inside this picture that are orange that the county has. So for a one-day event, it's not unusual for us to have 3 to 5 staff members on site directing traffic, depending on the complexity of the event, as well as putting up cones and making sure signage is out on the streets and that kind of stuff. So we also reach out to the ESDA folks. We reach out to the local police department, the fire department. We'll let them all know that we're going to be there. And if anybody wants to help or assist us in any way, we certainly welcome that as well. And it certainly reduces our costs. So my last slide is our COVID response. And from what I'm told from Jessica, we were the only county in the state of Illinois that was able to stay open during the beginning of the lockdown. And that was because the governor said that recycling was an essential service. And we reached out to A-Team, and A-Team checked that they could meet the safety guidelines that were coming out and felt that they could absolutely provide this service and meet those guidelines. So we continued our service. We changed it and educated folks through social media and our website to make sure that people knew that they were to keep their windows fairly rolled up and show us their IDs without any direct contact. Certainly if they chose to wear a mask, that was great, but we didn't force them to wear a mask in their car. A-Team did wear masks while they were performing this. They removed the materials from the cars, so we tried to do all of that as safely as possible. And then 2021, just so you're aware, oh, and the circle on the map, I should explain the circles on the map. That is a 10-mile radius of all of our recurring locations. So you can see we really do cover the county as much as possible. We describe our county service area as anyone who lives within a community that at least has a footprint in Will County. So as you can imagine, the city of Aurora falls into 4 counties, and we will accept electronics from anybody in Aurora. You show up with a license that says Aurora, we're not going to worry about which county you actually reside in. So, and that's true for all of the communities that circle our edges. So for 2021, we are in the program. We're going to be opting in this week to next year's program. We have seen problems. I'm not going to say we haven't, but at the same time, we've resolved a lot of those. We find that the program is adaptable to our needs and our residents, and it's greatly reduced the illegal dumping that we've experienced in the past. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul from Ogle County. And Paul is the solid waste management specialist and has been there since early 2014. Prior to this, Paul taught high school science for 17 years. And Paul also inspects landfills and illegal dump sites. He coordinates recycling and education efforts for waste reduction. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology, as well as high school education. He's a certified firefighter and a hazardous materials technician. So we welcome Paul to tell us how Ogle County is handling electronics.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us, Marta, for our overview of our electronics program here. So our department, going back to probably around 2000, has been doing collection events. Steve Ripkema, our director, has been very active over many years with those programs. And I didn't go into the entire history of how it's evolved over the years. I want to kind of focus on what we're doing now. But prior to 2016, even before I worked here, prior to 2014, the county was running one-day collection events, one in the fall and one in the spring with a neighboring county. Those were very well attended. They collected a lot of different kinds of things, whether it be residential or business. I attended one of those events actually before I worked here to drop off some items. It was very long lines. It was outside in a parking lot, and they had a contractor come in to do those events. And then I started working here at about 2014, I thought, yeah, or early 2014. We were running, when I got here, two two drop-off bins for county residents to continually drop off electronics. Those were not staffed very well, and we eventually had to close those down once things started to change around 2016. So in 2016, we decided to use our facility here at the county to offer drop-off events, one per month at our facility. We have a warehouse here and a large parking lot, which helped us to function very well. So since 2016, we've been running events on Fridays here from 9 to 4 p.m. And then we do 2 Saturdays per year, one in the spring and one in fall. So it totals 13 total events at our facility per year. We do not do a December event right now. So it's held at our county facility. So we have a large parking lot and we have a large warehouse so we can store everything inside until we're ready to get a truck and ship that off. Prior to working with Dynamic Lifecycle Innovations, we were working with a local non-for-profit, and they would bring a small truck and they would service our warehouse, and we would move things to them for some pre-sorting, and then that non-for-profit would send it off to other downstream partners to get those things recycled. That non-for-profit's not working anymore, so we got in touch with Dynamic, and now they're our recycler and we function as the collector. So we have 3 full-time staff here and we work the events. And for the rest of the labor, we also rely on help from the probation department. So I get in touch with the probation officer and they provide help for our events. And that's been very successful. We've had a lot of help from them to run our events, because as this program has evolved, it's gotten busier and busier, even for our mostly rural county. And we don't have the staff here at the county to really handle that. So they've been very good at providing labor for us for the most part. So we started working with Dynamic, and it's been a very good relationship with them. And that was before CERA. Once CERA was enacted, we had our group changed. We were assigned a group, but then we were able to stick with Dynamic. So it's been very seamless with them. So since August 2020, there's been some other evolutions in the program. Residents are required to register for these events now. During the summer of 2020, we got completely overwhelmed once we opened up after some COVID cancellations. So we just implemented a free permitting process for people, and that's been very smooth, and that's helped us to manage our events a lot better. So there's been several evolutions here in Ogle County through the years, going back 20 years now. We will advertise the program through press releases, social media, websites, brochures, and a monthly radio program that we do. So it's well advertised. So, okay, Marta. So again, in 2016, we reached out to Dynamic Lifecycle Innovations, and we entered a contract with them to pick up the material we collect. In 2019, under the CERA law, we were able to stick with Dynamic, so that was very fortunate. And again, it's been a seamless transition with them. So the logistics and ordering a truck and all the invoices have been very easy. And when problems might arise, they find the solutions very quickly. So we will average about 10 shipments to Dynamic per year. That's for both residential materials, and then also we run a small business electronics recycling program as well outside of CERA. And then we take some residential stuff that's not covered under the law. And so we will have to ship those a little bit different now with under CERA, but with Dynamic, it's been working really well. So, okay, Marta. Upon our request, Dynamic will provide pallets and shrink wrap and Gaylord boxes for us. We average a couple shipments per year of these supplies at no cost to the county. We will set the warehouse up prior to the event. So we have pallets and gaylords all over that are labeled, and we have other receptacles for cell phones and ink cartridges and video games and things like that. We have carts that we use to unload the cars. So as cars come in, our probation workers and us, we'll do a quick survey of these people. We'll check an ID and their permit now, and then we will get these cars unloaded as quick as we can and bring everything inside so it can be sorted and stacked and shrink wrapped and things like that. We do have a forklift to move material and load the truck and things like that as well. And then we can, we have enough room, fortunately, we can store all of our material that we collect until we're ready for a truck. So we can be sure that we will get that 18,000 pound goal per truck. Very often we're at a gross weight usually for our trucks at around 23,000 pounds. So they're loaded pretty tight, and we rarely have any problem with the 18,000 pound goal, really, just because we have that storage space. We don't have to move it off site right away. So we're fortunate in that regard. As far as our sorting categories, of course, we accept, of course, all televisions, so CRT televisions. Most of the time they're going to be on pallets. Sometimes the small units go into gaylords. CRT monitors, we put those on pallets. Flat screen monitors and small flat screen TVs, we try to use a gaylord. We are putting large flat screen TVs on pallets now. We are seeing a lot more big flat screens coming in. We're starting to see a little bit of a decline in the CRT televisions and monitors, of course, but we're seeing a lot more flat screen TVs now. The computers go on pallets, laptops into smaller boxes, and then we have printers and the other mixed covered devices will go into gaylords. The county does pay to recycle some of the mixed non-program or non-covered stuff like the radios, stereos, holiday lights, landline phones, shredders. That all goes into gaylords. Microwaves will be on pallets. And we have a separate area as well for rechargeable batteries, CFL bulbs, ink cartridges, and video game material as well. So, of course, all items under the CERA law, we have no charge for residents right now at all. We stay with the law. We accept 7 large items per vehicle per month. A box, let's say, full of small stuff, we consider that to be 1 item. So we are trying to stick to that too, so we don't get ourselves overwhelmed with stuff. The only thing we charge for are the microwave ovens, which is a non-CERA item anyway. So we charge residents $5 per unit for those items, and there is no other cost for the people. So again, and then we will pay to have all the stereo equipment, digital clocks, phones, radios, the non-CERA type stuff. We will pay to get that recycled through Dynamic. And then we also send them, of course, the business program stuff that we collect. So we'll have sometimes local businesses, other governmental agencies, schools and such will bring us stuff, and we can weigh that here and get that processed and then off to Dynamic. And we do charge for the business items. There's a fee for that. So again, here's just a list of what we accept. It's the same stuff that was on the first slide with Jessica. Those types of things all go to Dynamic for no cost to the county, and that's been working really well. The one picture on the right is a picture of our warehouse. So we got a pretty good amount of space we're working with back there to stack this stuff and store it and make sure it's ready for the truck, basically. As far as what we accept outside of the program, the non-program type material, the rechargeable batteries, the power supply units for computers, ink cartridges, CFL bulbs, stereo equipment, things like that. So we'll try to take what we can from people. We don't accept some things that a lot of people try to bring to us, as far as the white goods and the appliances, kitchen type appliances, personal hygiene stuff, lamps, and other junk. We don't really accept that. So we want to try to do a good sort at the curb here when people drop stuff off and get to Dynamic just the stuff that they want. some of the upfront costs, again, we already had the building, so that was really nice that we have this facility. We did buy a used forklift. I think that was around $5,000. Had to buy some carts, some utility carts to move stuff around. We already had signs and cones and things like that to help with the traffic control. As far as the recycling costs for the non-program stuff that we collect, about $3,000 per year. That's not including the business stuff. I didn't calculate that for this presentation. And then the microwaves are we charge for those, so we don't have to. We just don't have to pay for that. Forklift maintenance, fuel about $400 per year, and then supplies, lunch for the workers about $400 per year. So some incidental costs there annually for our program. And there's another picture there of our forklift in the warehouse. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, Marta. As far as some of the obstacles, sometimes we just have to make sure we have enough work for our event. That using the probation department, that's not a consistent source of labor, but it has worked out well for us. We seem to get some pretty reliable people coming through there for the most part. Sometimes the very large loads of material can easily overwhelm us. So we went to the 7-item limit, and then the permitting process really helped with that. People coming in from neighboring counties, we don't have a lot of counties right around us that have robust collection services, or sometimes they might not be as consistent as ours. So I think we were getting a lot of stuff from outside the county. And then sometimes sharing the parking lot and warehouse space with the health department and our emergency management department as well. Now with some of their activities has gotten a little more tight. So we have had to make some adjustments here and there. Haven't had too much dumping outside of our warehouse. Every now and then we'll show up in the morning and there's TVs out there, but not too often really. And the building does have security and there's cameras, and we actually were able to catch a couple of people dumping TVs on us, and we knew who they were, and we were able to deal with that pretty easily. The one major obstacle under CERA for us, prior to CERA, we were able to mix a truck go into dynamic with everything. We didn't have to segregate anything. We just filled the truck up. Now we have to segregate either the program material and the non-program material. So we have to store it separate and ship it separate, just with the way that CERA is designed, with the manufacturers only paying for the residential program weight. So that was probably the most major change that we've had under CERA, probably, I think. So as far as a wrap up, again, having an existing facility and warehouse space was really, really beneficial. We wouldn't be able to do this program without it. Having landfill host fees doesn't hurt either. And then that good relationship with Dynamic has allowed our county to do this work. Most residents are very grateful for our program, even though sometimes with the permitting process and the limits that we impose, you get some of the, people might have some complaints here and there, but for the most part, people really are grateful for our program, and we have a lot of positive feedback for that. So, yep. If there's anything that we can do, feel free to reach out to me and Steve. We can definitely help if you have questions about how our program works, or other advice that you might need if you're trying to start a program up. I think as many counties around the state that can get into this program and opt in, I think that helps all of us out if we're working together. So I see there's a question here. How large of warehouse space to use for this program? So I would say, just real quick, as far as our warehouse space that we use for our dedicated program, we probably got a good, probably about 200 by about 200 space to work, 200 foot by 200 foot area that we have. And you can see the one picture there shows the one corner of our warehouse there. So we got a good amount of square footage to work. So.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul. I appreciate that very much.
Yep.
I'm going to take you to DuPage County's program. Joy Hinz is going to actually be talking to us about the program they've been offering. She's an environmental specialist for DuPage County. She's the environmental specialist. She has worked for local government on waste and recycling since 1996. She earned a Bachelor of Science from Central Michigan University in Environmental Studies, focusing on conservation and the regulatory aspects of the environment. She supports the county's in-house sustainability efforts. She provides assistance to communities on several fronts, including overseeing the electronics recycling program. Take it away, Joy.
And all right, well, I guess good afternoon at this, or close to. Okay, so DuPage County is, we are under the CERA program, but I wanted to give you a short history as to how we ended up where we are with our fee-based program. Back in 2008, we were fortunate enough to be part of Apple's program. We were given a unlimited number of sites. It was all free. It was all wonderful, fantastic. And then in November 2009, that ended. So we were approached by Creative. Creative was again offering the golden apple of, we'll take your electronics, as many sites as you want. We're even going to pay you to take your electronics. It was great. And then they went bankrupt. Then we went to New Life, and New Life approached us with a zero cost program. They actually worked with only, I believe, two of our partners, or two or three of our partners, like Naperville, Lisle, and Wheaton, directly zero cost program, but no revenue, of course. And then New Life started not showing up to the sites. So we went back to the drawing board. Next slide. So we issued an RFP. And as part of that RFP, we kind of left the door open to do some brainstorming. We had heard from a few contractors that we really needed to look at different options, including a fee-based option. So we left that door open. We had 4 responses. 2 were RFP responses that would have cost the county. The other one were user-based program, user fee-based programs. The contract was eventually awarded to eWorks. The pricing was $25 for 21 inches and below, $35 for 21 and above. Next slide. So we immediately had Lisle and Wheaton sign back on. They were ready to roll. And then we took a look at the map. We did some thinking. We worked with our GIS folks and actually put on our map, who's taking what. We found that a lot of the drop-off points weren't taking televisions or monitors, or if they were, it was like our program, well, our programs that were fee-based. So we really did some looking to see where the underserved areas were within the county, because we wanted to come up with a really good long-term solution. Next slide. So after looking at the map, we started to make phone calls. We called our communities and said, hey, are you willing to host a site? Here's what you have to do. With eWorks, our communities do not have to handle the money. eWorks is taking that money directly from the resident. Our communities don't have to unload the cars. They don't have to answer the questions day of. They may get a phone call here and there. And they don't have to generate any of the reports. That it's all done by eWorks, but you do have to provide a space. For our 2 Monday through Friday, we need electricity, we need signage, and then we need some forklift assistance. Next slide. So after that, we managed to get a lot of partners. We have the 2 long-term partners, or I guess Monday through Friday, the regular drop-off hours, weekday hours, if you want it, if you will, Monday through Friday. And then we have the other partners on board. These are all local government partners. Some are once a month. We ended up with a few communities that worked best with a quarterly collection event. So we've been doing that, and that's been working well. We have 2 townships that are basically quarterly, but they do struggle in the winter months. I think Paul had mentioned, the salt piles and the snow plows were problematic when it came to some of these public works yards. So this is our program. We do accept above and beyond the CERA items, which is great. That's something that eWorks was able to reintroduce, I believe, 18 months ago. So we were able to expand our program. Next slide. Okay, so some of you are probably wondering what our Monday through Friday looks like. We don't have that warehouse space. So eWorks procured these metal, I guess you want to call them like overseas shipping containers that they converted into an office space, a collection space. So these are at our Naperville site and our Burr Ridge site. They are manned Monday through Friday. The staff are housed in there. There's heat. There's not sure if there's air conditioning, but the computer and anything that is sensitive, they're able to keep and lock inside that building that comes their way. The benefit of the Monday through Friday is when they have enough, it's shipped. So it really maximizes our program and makes it really efficient. Next slide. Just real quick. So, yep, again, no dumping. We traditionally don't have any problems with the dumping. Both sites do have cameras, as Paul had mentioned. And then on days where we have to shut down due to extreme weather, if folks do drop off, eWorks goes ahead and just picks that up and recycles that. Next slide. We did close down temporarily during the initial month after COVID, or the stay-at-home order, if you will. And partially that was because we didn't have the public works staff. They weren't there to provide us with their forklift to load the trucks. So at this point, our COVID practices are, please, if you have to pay in advance online. If you need to pay cash, we aren't going to bring exact change. We cannot give you change. Or if you use a credit card, it's a contactless iPad. You slide it and you pull your card out situation. And then last year, eWorks did start collecting textiles. So you see that on the sign that any textile donations have to be bagged. So that pretty much summarizes that. Next slide. So I think that's a quick rundown of our program. Again, fee-based. The county did not allocate any funding for this program. So we've come up with a model where we have an outside contractor that provides all of the collection services, and the money is handled directly by them, and we don't have to do anything, and our communities don't have to do anything. And that's it. Thank you.
I had to unmute myself. I wanted to thank you, Joy. That was fantastic and helps folks, I think, that are struggling with how to pay for some of these things. I want to introduce James Larkin as the co-owner of A-Team Recyclers. It's a company that he partnered in creating in 2015. Jimmy began his career in electronic recycling in 2007 and began coordinating a variety of collection events in 2008. Between then and 2015, he coordinated over 900 weekend collection events across the country. A few of the highlights that he likes to show off are how he did 30 events in a single day throughout the 48 states. His highest single event total was 404,000 pounds, and his highest single collection total for one day for all the events in one was over 1 million pounds. So Jimmy, let us know a little bit more about your experience pre and post CERA.
Thank you, Marta, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. A-Team Recyclers is registered with the IEPA as a collector. This will be our, we've been with the program under CERA since it started in 2019. We are scheduled to be collectors in Will, Champaign, Grundy, and LaSalle counties this year. We are also a nationwide commercial electronics recycler, and the majority of the work that we perform is for businesses, universities, and schools throughout the country. My goal today is to hopefully help improve current programs or get counties or even local cities and governments to hop on board with the program if they don't have one. I'm gonna share a little bit of the history that I've had with coordinating collection events specifically, how we have evolved our collection practices and suggestions for new collection programs. That nasty whiteboard right there was my Monday morning, at least for 3/4 of the year. Every Monday at 8 a.m. We pulled all the operations managers together. There was at any given time between 12 and 20 of us to cover the events for that upcoming weekend. Every Monday at 8 a.m. we went over all the details for that Saturday. This specific board covers 20 events that were going to happen that upcoming Saturday. We divided the staff, came up with how the staff was getting to all these events. Sometimes it required flights on Thursday or Friday afternoons. We had to coordinate semis then. We had to get all the gear to all these locations, cover hotels, rental cars if needed, etc. That was a nightmare. This board covered 20 events, but like I said, the most we ever did in a single day was 30 across the country. On average, it was in the low to middle teens, but in the spring and the fall and the heavy collection season, it was as high as 30 events in a weekend. Next slide. Issues that impacted collections prior to CERA. A lot of you on this call today were part of a program or held or have been doing collections for many years, and some of this will seem very familiar to you. Some of you I worked with, 10 years ago, and you'll be familiar with some of the pictures in the upcoming slides. There's basically five main issues. The biggest problem with collection events in the past was that event planning was pretty much educated guesswork based off of historical collections at the location, if any. If there was a collection event at that site, you had something to go off of. If there had never been a collection at that site, you were really, shooting in the dark. Other collection programs in the county would also help you because if there was a solution to where they had like 2 running permanent sites that were open all year and maybe 3 or 4 events, you could expect to not have such a heavy day adding a new collection in an area that was already being served. Advertising was the next big thing. You look at if people are doing TV ads, which are hit or miss or were hit or miss. Print ads, direct mailers could impact an event extremely. Stuff like that. Those are the areas that we looked at to kind of judge how the event was going to turn out. Another issue that impacted collections in the past was no collection limits. In those days, there was no collection limits. People would show up with flatbed trailers full of equipment, 10, 15 TVs. The city of Aurora, who I've worked with for many years, they actually were one of the first cities that we worked with in those days that it started adding limits because they would have residents driving around on a daily basis, especially on trash days, offering to pick up TVs for $10 to $20 a pop, and then bringing them to our events, to where we would have truckloads filled with TVs to unload at these events in Aurora. Another issue would be unpredictable turnout in underserved areas. In underserved areas, when there's not a program, you might have a collection like once or twice a year. and you never really knew how they were going to turn out, as opposed to areas that have a regular monthly program, or at least 3 to 4 events a year. Another impact would be extreme traffic peaks at random times during the event. A lot of events, as some of you know, as soon as you start, 200 people might show up, which can really impact the rest of your collection day. And the last major impact to collections prior to CERA was advertising errors, and I think we're going to go into that on the next slide. But issues with advertising, whether it be the wrong day, the wrong type of information, can really really made a huge impact that way. An example of an underserved area. This is an event from the spring of 2009 in Mount Carroll, Illinois. It's a 4-hour event. We sent 2 staff in a single box truck. And in those 4 hours, they collected almost 3 semis worth of material. Next slide, please. Here's a good example of advertising errors. Champaign County in 2012. In those days, Champaign would host the event at a newspaper's facility. Excuse me. Prior to the event, that newspaper actually picked up the statement for the event and ran it as that. Ran it stating that this would be the last event of the year, or the last event ever, instead of the last event of the year, which put a lot of people into a panic, and everybody showed up to this event that could. And we at the time had been running 3 or 4 events a year, I believe, at that location. And they had been pretty steady, 2 to 3 semis. This one brought in, I believe, 6 or 7 that day, and we were not prepared for it. Next slide, please. 2 more examples of advertising issues. Both of these locations had done events prior at the same location. They had just issued press releases for the event just as normal, but for these 2 specific events, other newspaper organizations had picked up the press release and ran it like crazy, and we were ill prepared for the impact that had. Next slide, please. Sometimes you think you would have everything well prepared, and you would just get blown out of the water. This event in specific was at Springfield State Fairgrounds. We had 10 guys there. We expected 3-4 semis in the 4 hours that we were going to collect. We ended up filling almost 8. That was a bad day. Collection results. Every collection in the past fell into 3 categories. Either it was perfect, it went just as planned, or more than likely it ended up being overstaffed to where we had 8 guys there and 2 guys could have ran it. Or worst case scenario, it was understaffed. Either way, you're losing money, but most importantly, you're impacting people in a negative way, because if it was understaffed, you're overrun with material, you're touching the material 2 to 3 times when you needed to touch it once. You're running risk of drivers running out of hours if they're far away and having to come back late. It was just really a nightmare. Not only is there 30 of them going on in some weekends, but some of them are getting overly hit, while others are way under what was anticipated. It was not fun. Next slide. Going into a bit on evolved collection. Nowadays, we've integrated technology and just a few simple rules that have really changed the game, no matter where you collect. Number 1 is TV limits. Most of the programs that we service nowadays have at least a limit of 2 TVs. Sometimes it's as high as 4 or 5, but for the most part, we still keep a strict limit of 2 TVs. That helps us gauge how much volume that we anticipate to bring in. Now, even though we advertise a 2 TV limit, we don't strictly adhere to it, the TV limit. Just by advertising it, some people will, like if they have 3 they have to get rid of at one time, they'll bring 3. We'll accept 3, we'll accept 4, we'll accept 5. The main reason behind that limit is not only to help judge how many people are going to, how much we're going to accumulate, but to restrict people from doing something crazy like they did in Aurora, that I talked about before, where we're getting truck beds full of TVs from people working on the side, and to restrict and to give a clear notice that businesses are not allowed to drop off there. CED limits, which is pretty strict under CERA. Some of our programs do adhere to those. We try to adhere to those too, but we don't try to like count every single item. We advertise it that way. Most of the public adheres to it, but we don't follow a strict rule of counting CEDs. Limiting attendees to local regions and checking IDs. That's a big part. A lot of people, a lot of municipalities have costs incurred from hosting these events, and they try to keep that to their taxpayers. We respect that. It also helps us with being able to allot for how much volume we're going to get. And number one, the biggest thing that we've incorporated into almost all of our collections nowadays is pre-registering for the event, which allows us to spread out when people arrive on site throughout the event, instead of everybody showing up at the beginning or certain spurts throughout the day. Everybody is scheduled, and a certain amount of people are scheduled every 15 minutes throughout the collection day, which really smooths everything over. And we're able to service more residents throughout the day than if we were to just open it wide open and get overrun right in the beginning. Now, using those rules that I just talked about, we've been able to evolve collection to the point where we're using in this example is Champaign County, which we've been doing this since 2016. The county pre-registers people in 15-minute segments. Those people, once registration is full, we set the limit, I think now at like 21 or 2,200 attendees. Once that is full, for Champaign County specifically, they actually mail out a postcard so they can quickly check in people when they arrive at the site. Instead of taking down names or checking names off of a list, the county just has them deliver their postcard when they drop off. And that's their check-in point to make sure that they were actually registered and they actually showed up. And then those people just pull through the line. And we're able to service up to 2,200 people in 4 hours with less than 10 minutes time actually on site. Next slide, please. To finish up, just a quick list of suggestions on ways to improve your collection programs, or in case for people that are actually considering developing a program that don't have one, always consider hiring a professional. Takes the stress out of your life. If you don't have a budget, a lot of programs throughout the state do charge a fee for TVs. I strongly suggest implementing registrations for an event if you're only having a couple a year. If you're doing every month, you might, even once you start, it might be a little crazy the first 1 or 2 months, but then everybody's going to get into, the swing of things after a while and you'll be fine. But if you're only doing 1 or 2 a year, I strongly recommend registrations for your event and to schedule at least 2 events minimum. Avoid extreme weather by scheduling events in the spring or the fall. We personally, we won't do events in the summer anymore. And you can imagine why. Collect on solid, smooth pavement, no grass or gravel. Have plenty of space, not only for collection, but for the queue line of cars arriving as well. You definitely don't want the police shutting down your event because you're blocking the main highway for hours on end. Implement limits and make sure that they're all advertised clearly. Everybody handles their everything, their collections a little differently, but the most important part is to have all of your advertising clearly state your limits, and that exceeding those limits will not be accepted. If you're collecting yourself, request detailed packaging instructions with pictures from your designated recycler. I've worked with most of the biggest recyclers in the country. They all have these detailed packaging instructions. Sometimes you have to remind them to send them to you. Reach out to your local public works department, high schools, and probation offices about providing staff and supplies such as PPE and a forklift for the event. Order freight by using 250 cars per semi. That's a good rule of thumb. If you're doing registrations, to use 250 cars per semi at this time, whether rural or more urban, that's a good number to use.
Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate that. I think those are some excellent tips, and we will be, like we said, recording this, so that some of that information will be available afterwards, or you can contact Jimmy. So with that, I want to bring up Casey Hines from Dynamic, and he is the recycling sales executive at Dynamic Lifecycle Innovations in Wisconsin. His key responsibilities include end-of-life electronic sales for residential and commercial customers in the Midwest and nationwide. Prior to recycling as a sales role, he's held various positions, which include sales, account management, and e-commerce. And before joining Dynamic in 2013, he worked with at-risk youth. And he has a bachelor's degree in psychology. So with that, I'd love to hear Casey's perspective as one of the designated recyclers.
Thanks, Marta. I appreciate it. Yeah, so just a little background for those that aren't familiar with Dynamic or myself. I did recognize a lot of the names here today, but for those that are unaware, Dynamic is located in Wisconsin, Onalaska, Wisconsin. We have 2 locations, one down in Nashville, Tennessee, as well as up here. And our Onalaska campus does consist of 2 facilities that you see pictured there, about 380,000 square feet. We use a combination of manual disassembly as well as automated processing to recycle the electronics here. Just kind of a quick overview of some of the capabilities here at Dynamic. We do have our own in-house logistics department. Materials recovery and recycling is really what we use for the Illinois program and recycling, as well as our legislative branch as well. But don't need to spend too much time on this one, so you can go to the next slide. Just quickly, some of the certifications. We are R2 and E-Steward certified. We do have, all the proper pollution liability insurances, things of that nature. NAID AAA certified, as you can see on the bottom there, the different logos for all the certifications that we hold. So just to kind of get into some of the one-day collection events, a lot of what I'm going to cover here was already kind of touched on by Jimmy. So some of the tips that we suggest, again, reaching out to the different groups that are available to you. So if you've never held an event before, reach out to your designated recycler, reach out to some of the other professionals in your area. A-Team Recyclers do a fantastic job. We do work with them in some different areas where we're receiving the material that they're packaging and sorting. They're fantastic. So, if you're new to it, ask questions, figure out, what things you need to understand going into it. If you're not going to bring somebody in to handle that packaging and sorting for you. Again, like Jimmy mentioned, a lot of the recyclers or the different groups are going to have different training tools, different pieces of guidance, information to provide to you. So take advantage of those pieces of information. some of the problematic areas, you really want to make sure that your residents understand the charges that could be passed along to them if they're bringing material not covered under the Illinois program. You want to plan for that volume, the material that you're going to be getting, and make sure that you have the space available, you have the trucks planned to get those electronics out of there. And again, just communicate the material that you're going to be accepting, so you're not turning away frustrated residents that are expecting to empty their cars at the end of the day there. Did want to mention that the two pictures here are from Will Summers and the Washington County events that they've held. I've leaned on Will as a great example of somebody that came into the new program not necessarily understanding how to run the collection events himself. He's reached out to the local firefighters in his community, and they do a fantastic job. And he's really molded his program year over year, or event after event, just to get better each time. They do a fantastic job. So if you're not going to do the one-day events and you're going to look to hold a permanent collection site, you really want to make sure that your site is going to be accessible to the public and it's going to accommodate your needs. So by that, I mean that the site is going to have the capabilities that you're looking for. It's going to have a loading dock. It's going to have the ability to store the different supplies or equipment that you need. It's going to have personnel on site that are going to be able to load your trucks in an appropriate manner so that you're not getting hit with any sort of underweight trailer fees or any sort of fees due to material tipping over, needing to get restacked, or anything like that. A couple bullet points for how to keep your costs down. You really want to, again, ensure that you're hitting the weights that the program has in place. So 18,000 pounds gross. If you're sending along non-CEDs, making sure that you're collecting for those on the front end so that those aren't coming back to land on your plate. One big thing is to make sure that you are keeping that material segregated. If that is getting mixed in with the various CEDs, it's tough for the recycler to be able to properly identify which boxes should be billed for as non-program or taken as program. So really keep that material segregated if at all possible, or when possible. I know Paul touched on that earlier, but being able to take extra supplies definitely helps, because then you have everything you need on site already. But it's also, we're all looking at this from a green perspective, and being able to cut down on the number of trucks having to come to your facility to drop off supplies helps us all. So, at the end of the day, our goal is really to send our people home in one piece. I'm sure that's the same goal for all of you. So, our main concerns as a recycler is just making sure that the material is being packaged properly, it's being loaded onto the trucks properly. Things as they're set on the trucks, they're not already tippy or wobbly, because as soon as that hits the highway, it's gonna bounce around, it's gonna tip over. So really from a recycler standpoint, just asking anybody on the front lines to make sure that material is being packaged properly, loaded properly, to make sure that it arrives properly in one piece. So lastly, from a recycler's perspective, there's a lot of different things that we take into account. Certainly a large one for us is the shifts in the various downstream markets and material types as those change. Recently we've seen a very large uptick in battery containing devices. A lot of the electronics that are being manufactured these days are having more batteries, more plastic, less intrinsic value. So all of that really goes into the big picture from a recycler of what the downstream markets are going to look like, need to look like for this material as it's being recycled. One thing to pay attention to is the changing relationships year over year. You're not necessarily going to be assigned the same recycler, same group plan from last year to this year. So just make sure that you know who your group plan is, who your recycler is, and who your contacts should be at those organizations. Dynamics certainly does have a unique perspective as being a recycler as well as a group plan administrator within the program. So by all means, reach out to myself, reach out to some of the folks here at Dynamic if you ever have questions or different things that you're curious about, or even just tips or something that you might feel your program could benefit from. We're always happy to help, as is everybody that I've encountered in the Illinois program. Certainly something that most understand already, but is something we always like to reiterate at every chance is the value that we see in the packing lists helps us understand, what materials you're saying you're putting on the truck, helps our team kind of double check that, make sure that what we're pulling off, what we're seeing matches what you're telling us we should be seeing. And then really the last thing I want to touch on is just the accuracy in reporting from point of collection all the way through the group plans and back to the clearinghouse. Certainly we all want our numbers to align. So, keeping in communication again with your collector, with your recycler, your group plan, just helps the program run a little smoother from start to finish. So that is all I got.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Casey. I appreciate it. It's great to hear everybody's perspectives on this. I am sure that the chat has been quite busy. I have not been able to keep that going, so I'm looking forward to hearing our questions. But just before we get to them, I want to get a quick advertisement out for our Wednesday, April 21st upcoming webinar, which is going to feature James Jennings from the IEPA, Keane from Scarce, and Walter Willis from Swalco. And it is on the Materials Management Advisories Committee's forthcoming recommendations to the governor. So they have been working for over a year on this process, and this could have a big impact on the solid waste hierarchy for the state and solid waste planning for the state of Illinois. So we're really looking forward to that coming up April 21st, and appreciate all of you who are members can attend free of charge. So get your membership going. So thank you again to all of our speakers today. You guys did a fantastic job, wonderful information. And I am going to turn it over now to Gloria and John and Luke, if they can let us know what the top questions are that need answered from the chat.
Okay, I think Luke has had to sign off and might be on the phone, but I think some of these questions were answered. There was a question for Paul. How large a warehouse space do you use for this program? I think Paul answered that, but this was from Susan Monty. Paul, could you just address that again?
Yeah, I would say our overall warehouse space is quite large. We have dedicated probably again about a 200 foot by 200 foot footprint for our operations in there, and then we also share that space with other county departments too. So we don't have it all to use. So we have to do some moving around sometimes of other stuff for sure. The warehouse also has a tall overhead door, so we can use that entryway, and there's just no loading dock. We have to load the truck with a forklift, and so we can't just roll stuff right in, but still having the warehouse space is good. So I'd say about 200 by 200 foot space. Yep.
And how many workers, Paul, do you use?
We probably, on average, we probably get around 4 volunteers per event. I try to ask for more from the probation department, and so I might ask for 7 or 8. If we can get 4 to 5, we're doing pretty well usually, and that's enough for our event, especially with the permits now, and being in more of a rural area. We don't have the size of events that they have out east, so 4 to 5 workers is pretty good. So.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And from Dr. Sharma, a question for Marta. What are the problems that you face?
Over the years, we've faced any number of different problems, but the appointment system, like Jimmy said, made a huge difference for us. We were regularly backing up onto public streets when we had our one-day events, and one of the unforeseen advertising situations we found ourselves in was our largest city in Will County, Joliet, had not been telling people about our collection drop-offs, and we were doing a one-day event, and they actually put it on their utility bill, letting everybody know that they had this opportunity to recycle. And that was great, except for the fact that it was the first time and only time in all the years that we've done programs, we had to actually close the event early. We had amazing parking lot snafus. People were in line for 3 hours. It was ridiculous. So the appointment system is fantastic, and our communities have taken a note and really helped promote programs for us. Today we're way below our. At one point, I believe we were well over 4 million pounds in 2015 of collecting. Now we're probably closer to 2 million pounds a year. The materials are lighter in weight. So right now, the biggest obstacle I would say we face is, the county does pay for professional collection services. And that is something that, right now we can do in our budget. And I know that's not something everybody else can do. So that's a fine line for everybody to walk, is what works for your area.
Okay, great, thanks. And another question for Paul from Dr. Sharma. How many different kinds of e-waste are recycled at the company where you send your e-waste?
I may defer that one to Casey, I think. That's our recycler. We just collect here. We don't do any processing or recycling here.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in, Paul. So we do a wide range of recycling, everything accepted under the Illinois program. We do also accept batteries, lamps, refrigerant containing appliances. So a wide range of white goods, pretty much anything. We say kind of the easy way to look at it is anything that plugs into a wall, has a battery or a circuit board, is really something that we can most likely process in our facility.
I think, Casey, doesn't Dynamic have videos on showing like dismantling of electronics and stuff? Because I would encourage people who haven't looked at those videos. I've been to some recycling facilities, and it's really, really interesting, the processes they use, especially on the CRT televisions, the tube televisions.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Jessica. Thank you. We do have some different videos on YouTube. Otherwise, I'd be happy to grab some links and just send those over to Marta if that's easiest, and Marta can share with the group from there. But yes, certainly we do have some different videos out there that kind of show the extent of what we do with some of the materials.
Yeah, that'd be excellent. We could throw it on our YouTube channel, possibly.
Yeah.
And then this was a question from Dave Van Voren to either Joy or Jason. Do either of you have information on the data of the difference in weight that you may experience on a fee-based location versus a free drop-off? I'm not sure that Joy is still on. She may have left for another meeting.
This is Andy. I'm Joy for the moment.
Okay, great.
No worries. So Joy and I work together, although she handles more of the e-waste and recycling than I do. But we did try and address this question in the chat, which we don't have specific data that we can pull for that. And a lot of it is just due to the fact that, we are seeing a reduction in TVs and monitors over time in our stream. So that is kind of difficult to tabulate.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see Jason Linnell answered it in behalf of the clearinghouse. Jason, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here, and I just say, yeah, we don't track that specific information about whether a county or a site collects a fee or not. That's left up to them to determine if they're going to. So we're not looking at the data that way, but I'm sure there are examples of there. We have data on all the different sites and could look and see if that's something that would be valuable.
Okay. There is a message here from Justin Crone from Boone County, a request that group plans should focus on improving or maintaining successful past practices rather than starting over each time a new group plan is assigned. Jessica, can you address that?
Yeah, this is actually Jason. Jessica, if you want to add in, but I'll add in there. Group plans, just to recap, those are the managers of that work directly with the manufacturers, and they're the ones who the clearinghouse assigned to specific counties. And so that can be your recycler, it can be a management group, it can be yeah, those two different options really are what we have right now. So yeah, there are instances where a group plan will change from year to year, depending on the mix of manufacturers, depending on which manufacturers choose which group plans. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. Learn from or know what actually happened in the past that worked well, and anything that didn't work well if we do have to change a group plan, which does happen from year to year.
Thank you.
If I may, the opt-in form this year also seemed like it covered a little bit, inviting you to give a little bit more description of how your program was working, so that as you're divvying them up, I imagine at the clearinghouse, that it would give a little bit more insight into who might work best. Jessica, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that was a good explanation from Jason. Thanks for that. I was trying to find in the chat the question so I could reread it. But yeah, I would say that's a good suggestion, along with sometimes your group plan will change, sometimes your recycler will change as well. But I know sometimes that over the years that has remained consistent, but good, yeah, definitely good suggestion as we're moving forward and seeing any changes for counties if those entities do change for them.
And that's it, Marta, for the questions.
Actually, Dr.
Oh,
Sharma just.
I
gave
say,
one for
see
Casey.
one more, yes. From for Casey, from Dr. Sharma, what are the end products as a result of recycling glass, metal, plastic, and others from e-waste? Do you recover precious metals and REEs from e-waste?
Yeah, so we have some different streams for the downstream for our glass. We do separate the panel and funnel it here in-house. We work with some smelting operations for some of that funnel glass. Right now, the precious metal that's getting recovered is coming from a lot more of the boards and some of the other commodities in that regard. Let me see, did I answer all that question? Yeah, so there's a lot of different outlets for the different separated commodities. So we have downstreams for the metal, for the plastics. That's what a lot of our operation does, is separating out the various commodities and sending those through end markets so that they can get reintroduced as new materials.
Okay, great. I think that's it now.
I do. And I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. I know we went a little over, and I appreciate that. I think it was worth it. And I hope that we've encouraged those of you who have not been part of the program to opt in. Those of you who are maybe on the fence will opt in. And those of you who've been part of it, certainly maybe you see some other ways to do it if it hasn't been quite working for you. So I hope we met all of those needs today. The opt-in deadline is March 1st, so it's literally a week and a half away. Please make sure to contact Jessica and let her know that you want to opt in. Jessica, did you want to throw out your email one more time or type it into the chat for everybody?
Yeah, sure. So it's just jessica.h.miller@illinois.gov. I can put that in the chat as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, and please let us know what you would like us to be touching on in the future for future webinars.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. See you later.
Bye-bye.